used to hear it. I don't hear it as much anymore, but it's like, don't question God. And I always say, like, if someone is telling you that, most likely that person has never read the Bible. Because in the Bible, there are great men and women of God throughout the whole thing that question God. I mean, I don't think you can have a relationship with somebody without questioning them. I'm just going to say this, guys. Listen, I'm right a lot. And my wife still questions me. Did somebody say boo? That was a joke. I don't know if you were booing the joke or booing what I said. Either way. No, she's right a lot of times. I still sometimes question her. I think it'd be impossible. So, in a relationship with God, saying, just don't question God. If this is happening, it's just God, so don't worry about it. And or how many's ever been told that? You don't question God. How many's ever been told that? All right. Well, like I said, most likely that person has not read the Bible. And even if they did, they most likely, because you get into this place where you just don't know how to answer it, and you kind of say some things without thinking about saying them. So that brings me to my next point. As a pastor, as a preacher, as a minister, I think a lot of times there's a lot of pressure on us that in the kind of the misconception that we know everything or we should know everything, and then feeling like that when a question comes up that we don't really know and are kind of unsure about, we feel like we got to say something that sounds somewhat spiritual, And I want to kind of squash that. And I want to tell you, because I feel like to start this off, there's somebody here, you need to know this. You've been hurt by a pastor or a minister, or felt like you were guided the wrong way. So I feel like you need to just hear a preacher say this: I don't know. There are things that are in the Bible, there are things that are of God, that my only answer may be, I don't know. And if you're like, well, I don't want a pastor that's going to answer, I don't know, I'm sorry, you got Pastor Mark, you can still go ask him. But there are some things I just don't know. I have a friend that had lost a child, and I remember when they were going through those moments, they were like, Jimmy, why is this happening? The only thing I could say is, I have no idea. I don't know. I couldn't imagine being in that spot. And so I feel like sometimes the best thing that we can say is, I don't know. And I think a lot of times, even for Christians, us as Christians, people ask us questions and we're supposed to have all the answers. But nowhere in the Bible does it say that. I think sometimes what people need to hear is, I don't know. So, because there's a mystery in all of this. There's a mystery. I mean, you have, I will say this. First of all, I mean, I'm not bragging, but I graduated high school with a 2.3 GPA. Not bragging, but I did. And when I did, I really didn't care that much. Like, it was just like a D is the same as an A. Just get me out of here. And one of my least favorite classes was science. And with that, I just didn't comprehend it. I didn't like it. Plus, always the science, for some weird reason, was always like the first period. So I was half asleep. But recently, in the past few months, I've been pretty interested in science. And I don't know why there's this misconception that, like, you got God over here, you got science over here, and they're button heads, and you can't have both of them. But what I've learned is in researching science is science points to God. Like, it reveals. I mean, there's no other thing you can say other than it's God. I mean, there are scientists that they go and they spend years and years and years, these brilliant guys and gals, they spend all this time figuring out why this does this, and they at some point they get to a stage where they're just like, I can't figure it out. I don't know. The only answer is there's something more. And I've read stories of these scientists that just, they were atheists, and then they get to the end of their research and they're like, there has to be a God. because there's no way that this could happen without there being a God. And it's amazing stories to hear with that. So with it, there's some mystery and there's some wonder in this walk that we have with our God. And it is on full display right at the very beginning of the Bible in Genesis 1:1. Genesis 1:1, it goes on. I think it's coming up here on the Sky Bible. It says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, right there's some mystery, right? Right there. In the beginning of what? Like, just in the beginning. Like, so God was before the beginning. Yeah, so, all right, so he was before, he's now, he's in the future, he's always has been. And if you think about it too hard, your head will explode. Because it's just like, what? Answer this. I don't know. In the beginning of what? I don't know. Just in the beginning. And then it goes on, Genesis 1:9. Skip down to Genesis 1:9. And it says, then God said, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. Anybody's ever been where we have, one of the reasons I love Fort Pierce is you can go to downtown, you can look over the river, and then you can go across the bridge. You got the ocean right there. It's gorgeous. How many's ever just stood there and just stared at the ocean, and it's like you can see where the water touches the sky, and it's so huge. How many's ever been in the ocean? If you haven't, you need to get out more, I'm just saying. But I remember I was probably about 6 years old, maybe 7. And my family, we would go to what we called Aunt Melba's beach house. Now that I'm older, looking back, it was just a home in Titusville that was somewhat close to the beach. But it was Aunt Melba's beach house. She owned the house. She lived in Virginia. And during the summer, we could go there. We could hang out, and it was just walking distance to the beach. And my family, we would go there, and then we would walk to the beach. And there was this one time that my parents, they bought me, I'm just going to make that clear, me, not my sisters, me, this set. Maybe you've seen these. It's like comes in like this netted package, and it's like a rake and a shovel and like a hoe maybe or something and a bucket. Now, they got different kinds, okay? They got the ones that are really short like that. All right, Pee-wee, my parents loved me. They bought the big ones, the ones that were like, because they cared about my knees. They didn't want me, being on my knees, hurting my knees. So they bought me that. Now, out there, hanging out with that, making sure my sisters don't touch it at all, and playing with the rake and everything. And then my mom was like, hey, Jimmy, come on, we're going to all go into the water. Went to the water with my family, and I remember being out there, jumping over the waves and all of this. And then I remember seeing in the corner of my eye, my orange rake floating by. Now, at that moment, I would do what any person that has any reasonable person would do, is I thought, I got to get my rake. So I started swimming towards my rake. I finally got to it. I got it. I know you were worried about that. Grabbed it. Then I stopped and I looked, and at the time, my parents didn't even know that I was swimming for my rake. They didn't know anything about my rake. I saw my mom and dad and my sisters. They were back up on the beach, probably having a sandwich. Didn't even know I was out there. I started like right there. You ever been in the water and you start like right like in front of where your little towel and umbrella is and everything, and then you get in there and somehow you end like you're like 50 miles away? It's like, how did I get in Cocoa Beach? And so I started swimming towards it, and sometimes I could touch and stuff, and I was making progress, and then all of a sudden this huge wave came over me. And I remember it just coming and me doing like somersaults under the water, and I lost my sense of direction, and I didn't know. I was under the water. I started to freak out. I didn't know which way was up, which way was down, which way was left, which way was right, and I was just trying to swim, and I could not get to the top. And I just remember thinking, why can't I not get to the top? I thought I was swimming to the top, but apparently I wasn't. And then all of a sudden, this hand reached into the water, grabbed me and pulled me out. It was my dad, which I've told this story before, and as a symbolic story of that's what our Heavenly Father does with us. He reaches down and pulls us out of our mess. But with that, there's just something about the ocean, being in the ocean, like you just realize how small you are compared to how big this world is. And those waters that are so huge, God created them with just words. Mystery in that. Mystery. I'm going to tell you another story because that's what I do. I tell stories. So I thought growing up that every family is like the Lloyds. Now, kind of, you're like, that's a scary thought. Touche. But I thought just everybody was. Like, you know, everybody watched the same TV shows. Everybody gathered together as a family. Everybody got up on Sunday mornings and went to church. Everybody, you know, just kind of the same process. And I remember, I had probably maybe 10 or 11, and I realized, this is the first time I really realized that not every family is like the Lloyds. Because I went and stayed with my friend. I stayed the night with my friend Jonathan Crick. Now, Jonathan and I, we liked similar things. We both were New York Mets fans. Plus, we both liked wrestling. That's a plus. And we both liked playing video games. So there's like stuff that we had in common. Went and stayed the night. And I remember this. We were sitting on the couch, and his mom was in the kitchen making dinner. And we were sitting on the couch. I can't remember exactly what we were watching. Maybe it was like RoboCop or something. I don't know. But I remember watching this, and I remember his mom saying, "Dinner's ready." Now, when she said dinner's ready, I know how the Lloyd family would operate. If mom was cooking, if it was not like picking up from like Little Caesars or McDonald's or Burger King, if she was actually going to make the food, we were going to sit down as a family and eat. Mrs. Crick said, "Dinner's ready." I started to get up. Jonathan goes, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, I'm getting up to go eat dinner." Like that's what, right? And like, "No, man, sit back down." What happened next, Pastor Rocky? What just opened my eyes to a whole new world. Gail Crick walked in with Jonathan and I both sitting on the couch watching RoboCop. She took the TV trays. These things, I didn't know what TV trays were. Took TV trays, opened them up, and she took the tray and she put it right there in front of us. And then she went and got napkins, put the napkins right there in front of us. Then she brought us the plates. And said, "Jimmy, what do you want to drink?" I don't know, sweet tea, Diet Coke, whatever it was. She went and got that. And we got to eat dinner watching RoboCop. Oh my gosh. There is a God. Now, when dinner was over, when we were done, I kind of moved the TV tray I was going to go because at our house we would wash the dishes. My mom is not going to wash our dishes, okay? We had to get up, rinse them out, wash them, whatever, put them in the dishwasher. I went to do that. Jonathan's like, "What are you doing?" It's like, "No, man, my mom does that." I kid you not. Gail Crick, being the anointed woman of God that she is, she came in. She picked up our plates. She picked up our forks. She picked up our drinks. She picked up the TV trays and moved them. She asked us, "You want to watch something different?" I don't know, maybe Knight Rider? And we didn't have to do anything. And I thought, I bet my mom does not even know anything about TV trays. Cannot wait to get home. The Lloyd's lives are going to be different forever. I get home. Same thing kind of plays out. My mom's cooking. She says, "Dinner's ready." I said, "Oh, Mom, I forgot to tell you. Did you know there's these things called dinner trays?" And just to throw this out there, Mrs. Crick doesn't make us wash our dishes. And my mom, DeWetta Lloyd, gave me this look where I just knew if I said another word, I would never eat dinner again. But it kind of opened eyes because there's different perspectives. We all grow up differently. We all we all go on this different journey. So if we all go on this different journey and we all have these different experiences, then why do we a lot of times expect everybody's relationship with Jesus to look like ours? I mean, if we're all different, wouldn't it be a little different? Now let me ask you this, and this is going to be a big one. You're going to have to think about it. How many of you here, by the raise of hands, have idols at home? Like some idol, like a little statue that you every Saturday at 1:25 maybe you go on and you bow to it and you pray to this little golden idol. Anybody, wow. Surprised to nobody. We know in church, like, even if you did, you're like, I am not telling anybody. This is a trick. I don't know what we would have done if somebody would have raised their hand. Yeah. So the Bible says, we don't have any idols. Like, we're not supposed to worship idols. We're like, yeah, duh. We're not going to have that. We're not going to go to Goodwill and buy some idols and bring them home or anything like that. But what happens is, also, there's different kind of idols, and one of them is this preconception, this perceived idea that everybody is supposed to be like how we are. And there are people that, different things, like there's some that church has become an idol to you. Or maybe your idea that things are supposed to go in this sequence, in this way, because this is how you've always done it, and everybody else should do that, becomes an idol to you. I know this, if you read the Bible and you're trying to find something to prove a point that you're looking for, and you're wanting to find it stated in the way that you want it stated, most likely you can take a verse out of the Bible, put it out of context, and you can make an argument with that preconceived idea. And we do that a lot, and a lot of times not thinking, oh, this is an idol, or this is, but we do it without even thinking. Because, well, this is how I was raised, this is how it's supposed to be, everybody in my family does it this way, everybody in my church does it this way. Why are you doing it differently? I mean, why is the church down the street? Like, we start at 11 o'clock here at Fairlawn. Why are they starting at 10:30? I don't know if God likes that. I mean, there's some churches, they start at 8 a.m. I'm not even sure God's awake yet. Like, 8 a.m., come on. Had somebody one time tell me, they had an Easter service. It was a sunrise service, and I didn't really know what that meant, because surely that does not mean that they go and then have church at sunrise. Oh yeah, that's exactly what they did. I was like, yeah, I'm busy. I got plans. It's called sleep. But in Ezekiel 14, God's speaking to Ezekiel, and he even talks about this. He talks about these idols of our mind, these idols of our preconceived ideas, and he talks about it, and he says, there's Israelites. They are worshiping these idols, that these traditions, these rituals, these ideas that they have, and they come to me, and they're worshiping these idols, and they're putting these idols in front of me, and then they come and they pray to me. He says, so what I'm going to do, Ezekiel, is I'm going to answer them like I'm their idol. So that's the kind of answers that they're going to get. Now, there is and because why? Because people would start thinking that they knew exactly how God was, and you didn't know how God was, so I'm right, you're wrong. And in their mind, they kind of became like God. And the great theologian Jim Carrey actually made a movie similar to this. It's called Bruce Almighty. And in that movie, how many's ever seen that movie? That was a trick. We only watch Christian movies, guys. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Now we know who to pray for, Pastor Rocky. So, in this, Bruce God lets him become God over his city for a certain amount of time, and then he's just like, no. He ends up burning the city down and just becomes a mess. So God's pretty much saying, What he's saying is, hey, I'm going to let them be their God until they just make a mess of things, and then they realize that, oh no, they want me to be their God. So with that, now there is this book that I got. It was actually written in 1838. So 1838. Pastor Rocky remembers back then. So I think maybe he. But it's by this guy named Edwin Abbott, and it is called Flatland. So the title of my message, I decided to title it, Welcome to Flatland. So look at your neighbor and say, Welcome to Flatland. All right, welcome to Flatland. Now, you're like, what is Flatland? Flatland, as Mr. Abbott put it, Flatland is a two-dimensional world. Now, how many dimensions do we live in? 3. For argument's sake, some would, I've heard all kind of, like up to 11 dimensions. Argument's sake, we're going to say 3. We 3 dimensions. But in this world, there's these 2 people. They are in Flatland. They are stuck. They are on this whiteboard. Okay, and you got 2 people. Let's get some names. What's the name of our first guy? Rocky? How about our second guy? Who? Yeah, well, someone said Buford? Okay, what do we... Jimmy won't work for this demonstration. You'll see why in a minute. So here we got Rocky and Buford. They are in Flatland. It's a two-dimensional world. They can only see 2 dimensions. They can see height, up and down, and they can see length. That's all they can see. Now, if we in our third-dimensional world that can see, if we wrote a book telling them about our third-dimensional world, it would be kind of hard for them to grasp that concept. Like we'd probably like in our book say something like, you know, our ways are greater than your ways. We probably would say some things like, there's some of these things you may not understand. But if we still wanted to have a relationship with these people, we wanted to tell them about our ways, some things would probably kind of blow their mind. Like if I said, Buford, in my world, I can be in front of you and behind you at the same time. He'd be like, no, what? It's unheard of. Or if I said, Rocky, in our world, I can take my arm and I can put it out in front of me like this. And he'd be like, what? He'd go, no way, that is crazy. That's all he could move, right? There's just 2 dimensions. Now, if Rocky and Buford in their 2-dimensional world, there's things that they can't see. If something happened, and say we just decided that we wanted to mess with them, because, I don't know, that's just fun, whatever, and say I wanted to take off my ring, and with this, I wanted to take my ring, and I wanted to just push it through their world. What are they going to see? Well, they're going to see something like this. It'd probably start off as a dot, right? They're going to see the tip of it. Then as it comes through more, that dot may start to see a line. Then as it goes through a little bit more, it may go to 2 dots. Then back to a line. And then to a dot. Now, if that happened, we might have, Buford might say to Rocky, did you see that? Like, yeah, Buford, I did. What do you think it is? Well, to me, it looked like a dot, then a dash, then 2 dots, and a dash, and another dot. So, yeah, but I think it's more. What do you mean you think it's more? I think there's something, I think that it was a ring. A ring? A ring. Kind of has like a Mighty Python type of, like, a ring? How could it be a ring? And then Rocky might say to Buford something like, have you ever seen a ring? He was like, no, I've never seen a ring. Have you ever held a ring? Oh, no, I haven't held a ring. I haven't even seen a ring. Have you ever been to Ringville? No, I've never been to Ringville. Then how do you know it's a ring? And he might say things like, I just feel like it is. Maybe say things like, I just sense that it was a ring. Now, if Buford and Rocky being in their two-dimensional world, if maybe in my third-dimensional world, if I wanted to just if I wanted to do something like this, and I wanted to just take my hand and I just wanted to put it really close to him, but didn't touch him, it was like, vroom, vroom, vroom. There might be two different thought processes going on. You might have Rocky go like, man, you feel that? Feel what? I just feel like Jim is near. I don't feel anything. What are you talking about? I just sense that. Yeah. Or how about this? How about if I really wanted to mess with them? And I wanted to take my hand and just shove it through their world. Just for fun. Really freak them out. What's it going to look like on their world? Well, my fingers are in different sizes, different. They would come through at different times. So what you would see, you got my hand coming through. So you would see dot, 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 dot. Now these dots are going to be different sizes because my fingers are different sizes. And they're going to come through at different times, right? So Rocky might be, Buford, did you see that? Yeah, I did. I saw that. What did you see? I saw different circles coming through at different times and at different moments in time. What did you see? And you go, I think it's more. I think there's more to it. I think it might be the hand of Jim. Like, what are you talking about? Like, can you prove this in a lab? No, I can't prove it in a lab. Can you give me any kind? Has this ever happened before? I've never heard of it happening before. And you would have two different perceptions. You would have two different ideas. And even though Rocky may not be able to explain what he saw or what he felt, he would be right. Now, Buford, he could explain it, but he's still not wrong. That's what he saw, right? Different perceptions of things. And I've done this before. I like to call it the marker trick. Here in Flatland, you can only see shapes like this will always be a rectangle. Right? That is a rectangle, right? Yeah. It'll always be a rectangle. This will always be a circle, a perfectly round circle. They can never change. It can't be. Now, us in the third dimensional world, we got this here. If you're looking this way, it's a rectangle, 4 corners. If I'm looking over here, it's a circle. And if I hold it like this, and look this way, it's a cylinder. 3 different dimensions. Now, if you were looking at it this way, and you're like, that's a rectangle. And then I was looking at it this way and said, no, that's a circle. And we had that disagreement. And you're like, this kind of sounds silly. No. There are people that have been at war and fighting with each other because some people see it as a rectangle and others see it as a circle, and they fight. No, it's a rectangle. No, it's a circle. And you have the circle people and you have rectangle people. Rectangle saying, we are right. We have 4 times as many angles, as many lines as you. They're like, yeah, man, but you're really close to being a square, it's just, which one's right? Both are, right? But so many times we see, like, oh, that church thinks this way, that church does this, we think this way, and we are arguments with it. Can we just do something? If you get nothing else out of this message today, can we just stop as Christians and as believers of Jesus? Can we stop arguing with other Christians and believers of Jesus on social media? It looks terrible. And then you have people on the outside that they're not even sure about this whole Jesus movement. They're not even sure about it. They are seeing us argue with each other over the stupidest, smallest things. And they're like, I don't want anything to do with that, and I don't blame them. And then we of the church, we go and say, well, that person just rejected Jesus. No, they did not reject Jesus. They just rejected the image that was presented to them as Jesus. Listen, if they're pointing people towards Jesus, if they believe that Jesus, who died on the cross, that His sins are what made us whole, it's His actions that made us righteous, if they're pointing people to Jesus and we're pointing people to Jesus, guess what? We're on the same team. There was this story, is in 2014. I just read about it, and I thought it was pretty cool, and I thought this right here was a miracle. 2014, Kenneth Copeland. Who knows who Kenneth Copeland is? Big evangelical. Now, I'm just going to say this. Grew up evangelical churches. We're evangelical church. Evangelical, hasn't always been open to other different denominations or other different movements in the church. But 2014, Kenneth Copeland had the speaker come at one of his conferences, and that speaker got up and he shared a video from Pope Francis. Now, in that video, this was already, Kenneth Copeland knew about it. It was predetermined. It was addressing the conference, and it was along the lines of unity. Hey, unity in this, us coming together, peace, unity, and because of that video, people started to protest and started picketing Kenneth Copeland's church and started doing all these things. And instead of, who protests unity and peace? No. But we get so focused on it always being the way that we've done it and the way that we see it and all that. They believe a little bit different. But no, if they're a believer of Jesus and I'm a believer of Jesus, they're my brother, they're my sister, and we're in this together. And there's a book about this. It's really good. You're going to want to write this down if you're taking notes. It's called 1 John, and they're still selling copies of it. It's in the Bible for those that didn't know and you're trying to figure it out and put it on Amazon. In Acts 17, 22 and 23, it says this. There's a story of Paul, and he's in Athens, and in Athens, and there's Greek mythology is huge in Athens, and there's gods everywhere. There's statues of gods everywhere you turn. And Paul, he's ministering to people. He's telling people about Jesus in this area, and starting with verse 22, it says, "So Paul stood in the middle of the leadership council and said, 'Respected leaders of Athens, it is clear to me how extravagant you are in your worship of idols.'" It's apparent. They're everywhere. "For as I walked through your city, I was captivated by the many shrines and objects of your worship." And then he goes this, "I even found an inscription on one altar that read, 'To the unknown God.'" Now, it's a pretty unique story with the unknown God. What it is the unknown. The reason that they have the unknown God, many years before this happened, before Paul was walking through this area, in 620 BC, there was this dude named that was over this area, and his name was Megacleses. Now, I know it sounds like a transformer. Megacleses. Let's get Optimus Prime. No, he's his ruler. And there was this famine. It hasn't rained, and they prayed to all their gods. Nothing was happening, and they got this idea. It's there must be a God that we don't know about. And said, let's pray to that God. And they just called him the unnamed God. They prayed to that. It started to rain. And they thought, okay, we are going to now make this sign, this idol of the unknown God. So how does Paul address that? He sees this plaque made out to the unknown God. He says, I even found an inscription on one altar that read, "To the unknown God. And I have come to introduce to you this God whom you worship without even knowing anything about." And he comes in and he says, "I want to tell you about this unnamed God that you've been worshiping, didn't even know you were worshiping, that puts all the other gods to shame. You don't need to worship all those other gods. This unnamed God, I'm about to tell you who it is." Now, for Paul, he got into some trouble in this story, and they took him and they put him in court in this place. It was called, I have it listed out so I can say it how it is, Areopagus. So it's also pronounced Mars Hill, so that's way easier to say, Mars Hill. And when he was in court there, the governor, he said this. He goes, "This guy's done nothing wrong. I can't find anything." He did not even put down our gods and our goddesses. So here's Paul. He's going and talking about Jesus, and he's doing it out of love. And he doesn't go in there and go, "This is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong." He just goes in there and tells them about Jesus. And now when he's put on trial, they're like, we can't hold anything against him. He didn't even put down our goddess, which we don't have time to go into the goddess at that time and what that was talking about. But in 1 Corinthians, when Paul's writing to the Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 8, he tells the church, he tells them what you're supposed to build the church on. And to your surprise, he did not say, what the church needs is more sermons with 3 points that all start with the same letter. Didn't say that. What he said is, to build the church, what you need is you need love. That's what we're supposed to build the church on. Supposed to build it on love. And then Romans 13:10. And I'm closing. And Heath, if you could get up here and you could play something really spiritual to kind of tie this together, make it sound good. Yeah, that's nice. So just whatever you had in mind, change that and do something spiritual. I don't know. Sometimes he gets up here and plays like Kenny Rogers or something. Motley Crue. Romans 13:10. It's Paul writing to the church in Rome, and he says, "Love makes it impossible to harm another." If you're so busy loving people and treating people the way you want to be treated, it is impossible to do people wrong. And then he says this, talking about all the laws, 613 laws, talking about the 10 Commandments included in this. It says, "So love fulfills all that the law requires." It says, you know what we're going to build our church on? We're going to build on love. Everybody that walks through that door, there may be people that walk through that door that you are uncomfortable with. And I hope to God that happens. Because if we're comfortable with everybody that walks through those doors, then we need to reevaluate what we're doing. And everybody that walks through those doors, you know what we're going to do? We're going to love on them. We're going to accept them as family. We're going to give them a hug. If they want a hug, don't force the hugs, guys. Because that's what we're going to do. We're going to focus on love. How many's ever had a 4-year-old draw them a picture? So let's say this. We got a 4-year-old who's going to draw a picture of a windmill. All right. They like drawing pictures of windmills. You give them some crowns, you give them some markers, whatever, you give them paper. When they present to you that picture of a windmill, do you think it's going to look anything like a windmill? Unless that 4-year-old is super gifted and talented, do you think it's going to look anything like a windmill? No. Now, when they present that picture to you, are you going to go, "You called that a windmill? You kidding me? Go try again." No, because we're not terrible people. You may not know it's a windmill. You may say something like, "Oh, explain to me what it is." And they're like, "That's a windmill. Don't look nothing like wind. Don't look nothing like mill." Now, say that same 4-year-old, they went and they grabbed those markers and that paper, and they asked you to draw a windmill. You may do something like, you may trace over theirs. What you may do is you may take that 4-year-old, and you may take their hand and put the marker in their hand, and with them you may draw out that windmill over their picture. And what that 4-year-old is probably going to do is the next adult that walks in there, they're going to run up to them. They're going to show them and present that picture. And they're going to say, this is a windmill that I drew. Now, most likely you are not going to do this. No, I drew that. No, didn't do it. He's only 4. You're not going to do that, most likely. Most likely that adult, even without you doing it, they're going to know, hey, a 4-year-old has some help drawing this. But what you're going to do is you're going to take delight in that 4-year-old's picture. And guys, I just want to tell you, this is how the New Testament frames Jesus. This is how the Jesus that we serve and we worship, this is how He operates. He comes into our mess that looks nothing like what we thought it would look like. And He comes in and He kind of draws over it and He partners with us to make it something beautiful. And He delights in that partnership. And He delights in that picture that you guys created together. So my brothers and sisters of Fairlawn, let me say this. May you love every person that walks through those doors, even those that you may be a little uncomfortable with. May you treat others the way that you want to be treated. May you find joy in participating and co-laboring with Jesus. And may you, my best friends, may you lean into the mystery that is our God. Peace and love, everybody.